This is Business Talk, your business, your success. Sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given is not intended to replace that of your business advisor. Now, let's get down to talking about your business, your success. This is Business Talk.
Well, good afternoon, Peg.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all of our listeners. Great to be here
all
today.
All the ships at sea. Hi, Alan, our producer.
Yay, Alan.
Hello.
All right,
Hello.
he speaks.
We have all of us here on
We're
this
all
beautiful,
here.
beautiful
Yes.
day.
And Peg and I are business coaches. And what, you ask, is a business coach?
Well, what we're going to do in general is on the air, we're going to talk about what we do in person.
True.
So in
Right.
person, what we do is we go and work with individuals and teams to help improve their overall performance.
Company results. We focus on
There you
business
go.
results, and small, medium, and large companies help them grow their companies and have better results with less effort.
And so when you're listening to our show, the one thing we want to do is we want to give you case studies, examples of what we're running into out there, and
Right.
then bringing whatever is I want to say the hot topic or the one challenge that most owners are going through or managers. And what we do is we create strategies. Now you have to take action on them. You have to learn. So if you're going to go somewhere and it's other than where you are now, the number one thing is what are you going to learn to get there?
And what are you going to do with what you learn?
And then what are you going to do with
You
what
gotta
you learn?
take action on things, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Take action
And our
on
topic
it.
today is about employee engagement. So we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. We're
Well,
going to talk about
let's do, yeah.
globally employee engagement and what we can do in our own companies to help our employees become more engaged.
Okay, so why?
And why would we want to do that?
That's exactly it. So we want to talk about why did we pick this topic? Because right now, Pete, we want to tell you a little bit about our firm. We have Michelle and Angie, who are our coaches, along with
Don.
and Don. Michelle and Don.
And Pete A.
And who's coming aboard. And then there's
Right.
Pete and I.
Right.
Pete A. Pete
So
A
five
and
of us.
Pete. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 5 of us in our firm.
Right.
So we get to work with a lot. That was a long way of saying we get to work with a lot of clients.
And it's a whole variety of companies. We don't work with any one industry on purpose.
It could be animal clinics, medical places. It could be manufacturers, distributors,
law firms, engineering firms, architectural firms,
retail locations, restaurants. I mean,
Right.
it's every industry. And so the one prevalent thing that we're seeing right now is number one is hiring, is getting great employees because of the.
It's across the board.
It's across the board.
Every level, high level, management level, mid level, supervisors, managers, and at the hourly employee level, everywhere. Right.
So number one, and because of that, there are people, we were talking with another company and another one that we coach, and people are, and if you don't know this, if you're a professional organization, people are calling your team right now.
No, they're asking them,
offering them for
you want to
jobs.
come work for me?
You want to come work for me? I'm going to pay you more. It's going to be pretty over
They
here. It's
are
going to be
calling
better.
them, or a recruiter's calling them.
Yeah,
Yep.
recruiters are calling, and,
Right.
and this is prevalent. So what we're going to talk about is engagement of your team, because right now you got to keep your good people. And if you don't have a plan to do that, you need to listen to the show,
Right.
because we're going to talk about the plan to do that. And that's what's creating this, is because all of our coaching clients, and we have about 35 different companies that we work
And we
with.
pick our topics based on what's happening in our world.
Right. And that's what's happening in our world right now. So we're going to share with you what we're doing with other clients.
Yep.
But
first,
before that, yes.
we're going to talk about good news, because we always want to talk about good news. Because why do we do that, Peg?
Well, if you want to, whatever you give is what you're going to get, and wherever your mind space is, and we want you to stay in a positive mind space, because when you're doing that, you attract more positive things. It's just a physics thing. This isn't just Peg and Pete talking. It's
Right.
what happens. Like attracts like.
It's Michael Lozier talking, or
Yes.
Lozier.
Lozier. And when you're listening to the news, and Pete and I, my job with, I guess, the family is we're allowed to listen to the news for the weather. So we listen to our local news for the weather, and maybe a 5-minute snapshot, because it's generally negative. And what we want to do is keep you with positive, upbeat items to make sure that your outlook is continuing to be positive as a leader.
Well, and I think, it's just my perception is that some of this negative stuff sells, and therefore they put more of that on the news and in the paper because it sells the news and papers, and it doesn't mean that that's what's going on out in the world.
So we're going to give you some.
Most of what's going on is really good.
So let's hear what's going on, Pete.
So this is kind of a big article, but I'm
Who's
gonna,
this now? Where's this
now
from?
this is out of the Wall Street Journal, and this is a few weeks ago. But this is really cool because the title of the article is "The Enlightenment is Working," and it says, "Don't listen to the gloomsayers. The world has improved by every measure over the past 200 years, and the progress continues." And in some ways, it's actually picking up speed. So just a couple of little facts here.
I like this.
I
Okay.
mean, think about the U.S. We talk about homicide rates. The homicide rate in 30 years ago was 8.5 people per 100,000. And right now, it is 5.3.
And
So it's
you know
dropped almost in half
and I bet
of
you
what it
most
was
people
30 years ago.
Most people would have said it's increased.
They think it's worse. It's much less. 30 years ago, we spewed 20 million tons a day of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, a pollutant. It makes sulfuric acid and causes acid rain. Now it's 4 million. It's 20%, 25% of what it was
right.
30 years ago. There are fewer wars. There's a lot of people that have been dragged out of poverty, millions of them.
This is good. I like this article.
The world is 100 times wealthier today than it was 200 years ago, the whole world. 100 times, 100 times wealthier than it was
That's
200
interesting.
years ago. There are much fewer people in poverty, and there's just a whole
I want
wealth
to
of
keep
statistics.
going. This is really interesting, Pete. I want you to.
Life has been getting safer. Over the past century, Americans have become 96% less likely to be killed in an auto accident, 88% less likely to be mowed down on the sidewalk. This is a good one. 99% less likely to die in a plane crash, because even in the 70s, when I was, in college and stuff, we had mid-air collisions. Planes would crash into each other.
Right.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It never happens, ever. 59% less likely to fall to their deaths.
Wonder
today.
why that is. Okay. Safety.
Well, yeah. 92% less likely to die in a fire because of construction standards, building standards. 90% less likely to drown. I mean, it's just interesting. 95% less likely to be killed on the job.
That is wonderful.
5% of what it was 100 years ago.
That's amazing. And what's interesting is that when you do hear the news and you do hear what's happening, that is being, people go, well, it seems like it's more. It's just because now we have more communication than we ever have to know about everything.
We sure do.
See, before you just didn't know about it.
This one is really interesting. 200 years ago, 1% of the world's population lived in a democratic country. Take a guess at what it is now.
Okay, repeat that again.
200 years ago, 1% of the world's population lived in a country that was ruled democratically.
Oh, my. What is it now?
Now it's 55% of the whole world's population.
Wow. Dramatically different.
The bad news is half of the 6.5 billion people aren't, but that's big progress,
well, it's
right?
progress.
It's progress, right?
And even when
Right.
we coach, we always talk about it's progress, not perfection.
Not perfection, yeah. Famine has been dramatically reduced because of crop rotation, we complain about fertilizers, but all this stuff has improved our standard of living and increased our longevity.
Which makes sense.
Anyway,
Does it
it's just
say anywhere
interesting.
in there like the longevity, like where we used to be, life expectancy of X and now it's X?
I'm looking.
You
here.
looking now?
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
I don't see
because
that.
they did say before it was, golly, I want to say now it's in the 80s, isn't it, for women? I think.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Oh, yeah.
and men maybe 80, 83.
The proportion of people killed annually in wars is a quarter of what it was just in the mid 80s. It's 25% of what it was in the 80s.
Wow, this is good news. Okay,
Yeah.
Pete,
Isn't
that's
that
a
cool?
star.
I think that's
Pete gets
really
a star
cool.
on his forehead because
It's
you
just
are a
encouraging for
great
crying out loud.
research director
Yeah.
on Good News.
Then the other good news is, look at this, is that, and this is good news, bad news, which a lot of times it is a shortage of new homes. We're building houses at the lowest level in history, and we're having trouble finding enough people to be able to build these houses fast enough. Right? Isn't that
I
interesting?
believe that.
You believe that?
Well, we've experienced that.
This one, and this is a picture, we get a picture of a vending machine, and it's a very large vending machine.
Oh,
it
my.
actually has cars in it.
It's a car vending
machine in China. Alan, you see that? It's really cool. And it's got a Ford thing on the side of it. But it says to buy a car in China, hit the vending machine in Guangzhou, where interested buyers can book a test drive online, bypassing the dealership. The attendants are available to explain the features, but you do it online, and then you show up and you hit some buttons, and the car comes down an elevator, and you drive it.
Oh, my gosh. I wonder if they're doing that to help with labor or something.
I don't know.
And if you look at it, how many stories is it? It's like seven
7
stories.
Yeah, it's big.
And 3
man.
across, so it's like 21 cars in this vending machine. Isn't that interesting?
A car vending machine.
Oh, my. Those were some interesting facts. Those are awesome.
You mean the good stuff?
The good
right?
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, that was really good.
I mean,
Thank you
we're
for
always
that.
going to complain about things, but we need to have it in context. Right?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, what are you going to put your focus and energy and attention on?
Oh, my coffee's not quite hot enough. You know?
Right.
Come on.
Right. We have a lot to be grateful for. So when we return, what we're going to be doing is going through the employee engagement.
How do you retain your employees? How do you
Retention.
keep them involved? How do you keep them working for you as long as you would like them to work for you?
Making sure that you keep the people you want to keep.
Right.
To learn more about today's topic, call 614-306-7922. Now, back to more Business Talk.
Well, we're here talking today about retention and turnover and how do we engage our employees.
How do we gain? And before the break, what we did talk about is why did we pick this topic? Well, we picked this topic because it is so prevalent.
Oh, yeah.
Your company right now, if you have a team, they are being called by your competitors.
Now, every once in a while, and we don't hear this as much as we did 10 years ago, I don't think, is that when we meet a new client or a new prospective client, they say, well, my business is different. Oh, I'll tell you what, folks, listening audience, everybody's business is in this pickle. They're all in it.
We're all in it.
I mean, we have a big, diverse group of companies we work with, and they're all in.
We have it.
They're all struggling.
2 and 3 person companies, up to thousands of employees, and they're all in this. So what we want to do is we want to take you through a process that we take our clients through. So Pete and I are business coaches. We work with we have a firm here in Columbus with 3 other coaches that work in the firm.
Right.
And we're going to give you some case studies that you can, our goal of this show is to make sure that you are learning. We just want you to learn something and then apply it and make your life better. And we do meet one-on-one with our clients if you're interested in meeting with us to see how this applies to you. And we're going to take you through some strategies on what you can do.
Well, let's start with some numbers because I love numbers. Right?
I love numbers.
It gives us a little idea, a little context. So the United States, what do you think turnover is for the entire United States, the whole workforce in the United States?
Well, some people might be saying 1% or 2%, but I bet you it's more like 10.
It is 10. It's 10.1.
10.1.
And actually, if you flip this paper around, you'd see it is 10.1.
10.1. He is not lying. It is 10.
Okay, that's what the stats say.
And Pete,
right now.
I'm glad you just said that because I want you, as you're listening to this, I want you to compare yourself not just to the United States, but even thinking about what your industry as a whole turnover.
Yeah, and our focus, most of the time is it's interesting to know what the whole country's doing. That's great. However, what was mine last year? Right?
Know what that is.
You should know what that is. Just like your financials, we want to know how you did in 2017, so we know how many taxes to pay and all that. Great. But we would like you to take your number of employees that left your company and divide it by your total number of employees, and that's your percent turnover. It's that simple. Times 100. That's it. And we have some companies that are well over 50. Because of a couple of companies out of the 35 that we work with that are over 50% for specific reasons, and we're working on those. But we want your number to go down through a focused activity, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
This should be a key performance indicator that you're looking at.
Thank you.
So that not only are you looking at where you are now, you're going to create a goal of where you want to be, and then you're going to create strategies on how you're going to get there.
And we don't want you to beat yourself up when you do the math and go, oh my gosh, it's 40%. Well, okay, that's fine. But now, what are we going to do to make it better? That's all. Progress, not perfection.
And here's another thing is if you are losing more people, so this happened to another company, is their percent was 3%. 3? 3. Okay. And they have a division, so they have multiple divisions in this company, and they have one division that it's going up to 20. So that's okay. Now, what are we going to do about it? Okay, we have it. What are we going to do? What are our strategies?
Because you have a larger company with multiple departments. Some departments, because they're with different managers or the type of work, there's something going on there that you as an owner need to understand and act on if it becomes out of control.
Because we do have another company that we do where this one division, it is more difficult. The job is more tedious, and it's more, I want to say, challenging. It's more tedious more than anything else. And because of that, people don't like to do the job, so their turnover rate is higher. So that's a different issue.
Okay. So measure your own. That's our first piece of homework is measure your own, at least for last year, and then let's measure going forward. Look at it periodically. And then how do the best companies do in this regard? We looked up a few stats, and the top companies, and you can look this stuff up online. Wegmans was one example that popped out because it's a grocery store, and you've got people unloading trucks, you've got people stacking shelves, you have people that are at a counter.
You have a lot of hourly workers.
You have a lot of hourly workers, and it's not exciting work. Their turnover is 4%. And
it's a grocery store. Wegmans? I've never heard of Wegmans.
Wegmans. They're huge. I mean, it's a big company.
Oh, okay.
But 4%. I mean, it's a Fortune 100 company.
Gotcha.
So they're very big.
They're doing a lot right.
They figured out a way to do it well. So we're just challenging you guys to think about it. The other thing I want to mention is that, and this is an interesting stat, is the United States, how much of the United States workforce do you think is truly engaged in their work?
And
in other words, excited and focused and energized and positive.
Well, I would think it would be higher. So let's say 40%.
Yeah, it's 30.
Oh, okay.
Now, the world at large, we always complain, well, we got problems here. It's 15% across the over 1 billion people on the planet.
I wonder how they measured that. I wonder how that statistic.
It's surveys.
Surveys.
Yeah. So we're doing better, but what that means is that 70% of our workforce is not really engaged at work.
Which is going to impact your production,
absolutely,
your team, your culture,
they're on their phone,
your results,
they're calling their girlfriend, and whatever they're doing.
So as you're listening to this show, you do need to do a self question of what have I done to help make sure that my employees are engaged, because it does mean money to you.
So let's get to the money part.
Okay.
So there's a couple stats here. One is from the U.S. Department of Labor. The other one's from a CBS study that, and this is for lower level employees, not your high level management team members, and we'll talk about those in a minute. A mid-level to lower level worker, an hourly employee, maybe a supervisor, manager, that type of thing. U.S. Department of Labor says it's 30% is the cost of one turnover. So if they make $30,000 a year, that's $9,000 having that person leave. That's what that costs you. And if you think about training or overtime or mistakes that happen when somebody leaves, and
or even lost opportunities,
lost sales. So 30%. The CBS is a little bit more conservative. They said 20%. So if it was a $30,000 employee, it's $6,000.
And one of the things that Pete and I do, so this is Business Talk with Peg and Pete, and we really, as coaches, work with teams. We work with owners, we work with managers, and we work with teams to help in all different areas. Today, we're talking about engagement, and a lot about engagement is culture.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And we're going to talk about that. And we work with, because, and here's the thing, and I think most of it's interesting because Pete and I have been doing this for 13 years, and way back when, in the old days, Pete, I remember we'd go in and people would be like, in the old days, we can actually say that now. Oh, what is that culture thing? Oh, that's not worth it. That's a soft thing. I mean, you get a lot of naysayers, and we don't really run into that anymore.
Well, and we actually had a business owner tell us a while back that turnover, I don't care about that.
Turnover doesn't mean anything. I can just replace them quickly. Right. And they didn't understand the impact. And I mean, that's just a learning curve of understanding the impact that a person leaving has on you. So no matter what, the question is, how much attention and focus are you putting on this?
And if you have a higher level person, let's say you have a $100,000 person, a mid-level executive even, that's making $100,000, the cost of that turnover is 40 to 50%.
And that's according to the same
sources.
Same sources.
Yeah, and you can look this stuff up online. There's a lot of different statistics, but they're not that far off of each other. And if you have a significant turnover opportunity, the dollars that you can make by working on it could be huge.
And that's huge. What's your investment? What are you investing? We Pete and I went to a conference with Darren Hardy, who is an author, speaker of Compound Effect. He also does the Darren
one
Daily.
Of his books,
he's a great individual.
The publisher of Success Magazine. Right?
Yeah, that too. How could I forget? That's what he's really known for. And one of the things he said is looking at how much investment are you making in yourself and in your team. Right. He suggested whatever your salary is, that you would invest 10%.
10% of your pay
each year.
Right.
And so looking at your investment just with your employees, like, have you trained them? Are you creating meetings? Are we doing team days? Have you structured this out? This is everything that Pete and I do with all of our companies, and we see an impact.
Well,
it
think
makes
about
a difference.
that 10%. If you work 50 weeks, that's 5 weeks a year of development. That's a lot.
Right. And if you're going to...
But most people are doing less than 1%.
Right.
They might go to a workshop once a year.
Well, and I guess what we're doing is as you're listening to us, I think if you're listening to us and you're taking notes, you're what we would call a super achiever. You're the ones that we work with. We work with people who are ready to grow, willing to do what it takes, and it's not that difficult.
So piece of homework number one is calculate your own turnover, your retention rate, your turnover rate. Mm-hmm. Number two is what's the dollar value? Take a stab at it. You can go online and pick up the numbers just like we did and figure out what the dollar value of that turnover is to see what's the opportunity cost here. Mm-hmm. What could, if we worked on this and cut it in half, which most companies can if they focus on it, they can't. You can cut it in half. Now, it may take you a year or two, but you can cut it dramatically.
Well, even take 10% off.
Right.
Take 20% off.
Right, exactly.
The goal is, let's say you're at 40%.
Right.
It might be unrealistic in a year to go down to 10.
Let's get it to 30. Let's just progress, not perfection. So, so we're going to talk more about this. And there was a gentleman, Todd Davis, who wrote a book called Get Better, and it's about relationships. And he's got some tips in here about how we keep our employees engaged. So we can go through these and talk about them a little bit. The number one thing on here is building relationships, oddly enough. And he said that is what your culture is. That's the nature of your culture, is the relationships amongst your employees, amongst the different levels of management, amongst the different departments, with your contractors, with your customers, all these interactions. That's the real thing in your business that you can add value to.
That's exactly it. And Tribal Leadership, which is another great book, which is about culture, they say the same thing. Culture is defined as the relationships that are created and the language that you use amongst those relationships. It means that we're aligned in our thinking, in our acting, in our relationships. We were just with the company. We said, how much time are you spending or strategies are you using to build those relationships? Because a lot of times you think that's down production time, that's soft stuff.
Right.
Well, that soft stuff makes people stay. If they stay, you make money.
The soft stuff's the real stuff.
You
have to do the tactical stuff, building the machine or designing the equipment or whatever it is you do. But the soft stuff is where you make your money.
Well, and it's when people are engaged. So if they're on the average, Pete, you said employees are engaged 40%?
In the U.S., it's 30%. So 70% are not engaged.
So here's your challenge.
On average. That's on average.
Have you surveyed your clients? When we work with companies, we do a survey.
Right. Their employees?
With their employees. How engaged are they? And then what should that number be, and how do we do that?
Right.
Because you're going to get more production out of them. So
one of your challenges as a leader is that you've got to be thinking about, how do I foster relationship building in my organization every day? And the first thing is to start with, how am I doing? Mm-hmm. We could talk about that a little bit when we get back, about how am I doing at building relationships by the habits I have or don't have and the routines that I have when I go through my day.
And what we'll do is, as we're going through the show, we're going to give you more strategies of how to make sure that you keep your team engaged.
And we'll share some things that some of our clients have done recently
that have worked. So stay tuned. You have a piece of paper and a pen if you're not driving.
Unless you're driving.
Driving. And you can always go to our website, takeactionbusinesscoaching.com.
And click on the Business Talk icon, and you'll see past shows.
And that's takeactionbusinesscoaching.com. You'll see a 98.9 icon in the top right-hand corner.
You'll see a picture of Peg.
Could your business use some help? Call 614-306-7922 to schedule your coaching session. 614-306-7922. Now, here's more business talk.
Help.
That's Alan screaming for help, because a lot of you listening to the show may be doing the same thing. We're here to help. I like that, Alan.
I love it, Alan. You got a speaking part.
That's going to cost you.
That's fine. Peg, pay the man.
Absolutely. It's worth every minute. So Pete and I are business coaches, and I really like our topic today, Pete. It's all about engagement. And how do you make sure your company and your managers are engaging your team?
Right. So one of the simple examples, and we've got a manufacturing company that we're working with, great folks. We're helping their first line supervisors and their managers to reduce retention in the factory, right?
To increase retention.
To improve retention. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
We want to make it better.
Yes.
We want to retain people. We don't want them to leave us and go work across the street, right?
Exactly.
Because there's jobs everywhere, right? 4% unemployment.
It's super competitive out there. I'm just saying.
It's going to be that way for a while.
Yes,
yeah? So,
exactly.
And one of the things is talking about habits is that this particular business we are reminding the supervisor, and most of it is just basic common sense stuff, is say hi to people.
And we're going after the first point of relationships, right?
Yes.
How do you build relationships?
Yeah.
Saying hi is a basic, easy thing to do.
And actually, I spent a lot of years in a factory environment, stopping and looking somebody in the eye and asking them how they are and actually meaning it.
And listening to
how
them.
was your day? And then, and that I'm flipping to the about the third point. It's talk less, listen more. I mean, this author talks a lot about when you ask somebody a question who's an employee in your company, don't have an agenda. Just ask them, how are you? Or is there anything I can do to help you?
Well,
open-ended questions and let them talk to you.
And one thing we're doing with another client, this is just, again, case studies of what we're doing that is working. So this isn't just Peg and Pete making it up saying, try it. This is Peg and Pete saying other companies are doing this and it is successful. So one thing is, how often are you meeting with your team outside of work? So are you doing a breakfast or a lunch or a happy hour?
Well, think about millennials. We are hiring a lot of millennial folks into our businesses because we have to.
Right.
That's the biggest group in the workforce right now, and it's growing, right?
Correct.
And we've got to figure out a way to keep them engaged. And they do enjoy social interactions after work, most of them. Not all of them.
Right.
But a lot of them do. They appreciate it.
And are you meeting with all your team? So let's say your company, depending on how big your company is, I mean, it could be 10 people or your division, if you're a manager and you're over division.
It could be a handful.
It could be 200. It could be thousands. But whatever it is that number is how are you making sure that you're reaching out to all your direct reports and having those moments and even going beyond that to reach as many people as you can. So we have one gentleman who is doing a lunch once a month, and he sends out an email. Everybody knows it, and whoever signs up first.
He sends an email to everybody in the company, and the first 5 get to go, right?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
They go on their calendar and they sign up.
Right.
And it's in the goal is to just talk not about business, but just to get to know each other.
Sometimes it's a cup of coffee, sometimes it's lunch, sometimes it's a beer at the end of the day, and it's kind of fun. They make it fun, and they get to hang around with the president and just talk about stuff.
So that's an action you can take from the strategy of building relationships to help engagement. So as Pete and I, as business coaches, working to improve your environment, working to improve your profit, that is the strategy. Are you doing that? And as you're hiring or bringing on new people, what if you just did a new person, depending on how often you bring in people, monthly or quarterly, where you are gathering everybody so they get to know you? Because a lot of times if you're at a manager level, a VP level, and you sometimes lose track of who's being hired and who's, that's a way of doing that.
Certainly. Yep.
So that's a relationship thing. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a relationship building. Be thinking about that. The second bullet point, and again, this is out of Todd Davis's book, and it's think we, not me. So what about this team? What about the company all the time? What can I do to help this team? Are they getting the information they need? Are they getting the materials, the parts, the tools that they need to get their job done? Is there anything I can do to make it a little simpler for them to get their job done? Faster, more efficient, easier, more enjoyable even.
And when you have those managers in front of those team members, are they thinking that way? Are they in the right mindset to think of all of those things that we're talking about? Or do they need education? A lot of times, Pete and I, as business coaches or executive coaches going into a company, they just need to learn. They don't know what they don't know. Have you educated them on how to engage an employee?
Right.
And these are things that.
And sometimes this is challenging because I've been there. If you've been in a place for 10 years, 15, 20 years, and you know it like the back of your hand, you don't even have to think about it. You really have no concept for how little that person who's been here a week doesn't know. You think you've showed them, but do they really understand it?
You make a lot of assumptions. And one of the things one of our clients did is whenever they do training, you do want to train people as you're onboarding them, as you're engaging them. You do want to train them with the best person, but sometimes it's the person that hasn't been there the longest but is still good because they remember what they didn't know when they were there. So if you put somebody with a 20-year veteran, they might forget especially if the training isn't systemized, they might forget all the things that aren't known.
One of our clients has a manufacturing company where they do design and they build equipment and things. And there's a relatively new mechanical engineer there. The president of the company is a high-level engineer, and he is now focusing more time to spend with this younger engineer and teaching him a little slower. In the beginning, he was getting frustrated because he's like, well, guys should know this stuff. Well, they don't really know. In school, they teach you a lot about math and about physics and about engineering and those kind of things. And it's all necessary, but it's not sufficient. And they don't know about productivity. They don't teach you about how to do things quickly and efficiently in school. They just don't.
So I guess we're hopping to this. I don't know if I'm hopping on your list. I guess another strategy, which we're talking about, is training. Is what is your training
it's
program?
Not even on here. Yeah.
Training is, as we are looking at, as we've looked at some of our turnover at other companies, we sort of divide it down and say, what is happening? Relationships has been absolutely the number one overall. Relationships, communication. I think that's two separate ones.
That's a big one. But training, people almost always enjoy training. If it's well done, they appreciate the fact that you're spending time helping them learn.
So what is your training program? And here's what's happening. And this might be you as you're listening. I'm so busy, I don't have time to train.
Right.
And so just go out there and do it. And that isn't going to work for you to keep your people.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that in the first segment we talked about calculating what does it cost you to lose people. If you know how much that costs you, it can give you an incentive to spend some time on training and development.
And are you doing it with purpose? Are you doing it systematically? And are you being disciplined enough to say, I'm going to allow this time for them to onboard correctly? So we lose a lot of people, I'm telling you, because we do exit interviews all the time too. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like I was drowning in a pool. Like, they don't feel successful.
Right.
And that, if you get a good person, you need to make sure that you prepare them. So training. Okay. So
that's
far.
Good. That's good.
So we've got
building relationships, thinking of we, in other words, thinking of others, not yourself. Talk less, listen more.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. The next one I've got here is get your volume right. In other words, and Peg and I use the DISC behavior profile a lot because it's a fairly simple tool to determine how someone is wired and is going to react in different situations. But what it means here is that, and there are some folks that will not get disturbed if you have your voices raised, and there's some that will. And you have to understand the difference as a leader. And you've got to be appropriate in the situation and for the person. And you've got to change all the time.
Well, I just love that. And it's going back to adapting your approach to the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
And it goes back to communication and relationships.
Right. Is my response appropriate to the thing that is happening here?
Yes.
And making sure that you're consistent and steady. Because they're always looking to you to lead. And if you're erratic and unpredictable, it's going to cause big problems in your company.
So we've been talking about engaging and making sure that we continue our retention rate. So as you're listening to the show, you're like, I wish I could have heard, Pete, some of the other show, some of the show, the part if you just tuned in.
Yeah.
Make sure to go to our website, takeactionbusinesscoaching.com.
And on the website, there's a 98.9 FM, hooray, icon. If you click on that, it'll go to the past Business Talk shows, right?
Yeah, it's up in the upper right hand. It's just real simple.
It's a number, 98.9.
Yes,
right?
and you'll see this on your on our website and say, okay, and also you may want to have a manager listen to this. Because you know what, when you're listening and you tell them, sometimes it takes Peg and Pete to tell them.
Well, sometimes it's better to have somebody else. The last one before the break, I'm just going to throw this out there so you can think about it during the break, is the last point that this gentleman who wrote this book brought up is focusing on basic civility.
It's a simple one.
Well, it's a simple one, but do we all do it really well all day long at work? Being kind versus being right, smiling people, saying please and thank you, putting your dishes in the dishwasher in the kitchen, all that stuff.
Thinking of others,
right? Opening the door for your, helping people carry things, all that stuff. If you do that, it promotes teamwork. It helps people belong.
And whatever you give, you're going to get more.
It's a family, right?
Are you respecting them? I like that, civility. And I like that because it also ties into listening, or making sure you're listening.
What?
Help.
To learn more about today's topic, call 614-306-7922. Now, back to more business talk.
We're having a good day today.
We're
aren't
having
we?
a good day. It's always
Great
a good day.
Great to
in
have
Ohio
you guys.
when it's above 30 degrees. We like it.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Well, we've had a great show today talking about the engagement of employees and what some of our clients are doing, what they're running into as challenges, and what are some of the strategies they're using to fix it.
Right.
So some of the strategies, just let's recap real quick, Pete.
Number one, know your numbers. And we do that on the financial side of the business, too, is you should always know your numbers.
I like it.
What is your retention rate or your turnover rate? Calculate it and have it as a benchmark. And don't beat yourself up with it. Just know it. Make sure you know your numbers. Number two is these things that we rattle off, and we went through a bunch of them. One is building relationships every day. And that is what's going to define your culture. The strength and the type of those relationships will define your company culture.
And that means sometimes you're not producing because you're building that. That doesn't mean that you're wasting time. It means it's with purpose.
Well, and what we've learned over the last however many years is that when the better you build these relationships, you're going to get more production.
Right.
You will.
They want to do it for you.
Because if you don't have them, you're not going to make it.
You're going to lose people.
Right. You need that whole person. We don't want our workforce 30% engaged, which is the U.S. average.
Right.
Because that's 70% disengaged.
Right.
We want it the other way around. So talk less, listen more. That's a good one.
Yes, I like that one.
Get your volume right. In other words, be appropriate situationally and for each person. And then the last one was basic civility.
Well, and then we also
mentioned training.
Yeah, we talked about training, and then also thinking about when you're looking at your communication plan. So what is it? How often are you communicating? What is it that they know? A lot of times, I would say 100% of the time, when we survey teams,
they want more communication.
They want more communication.
Always.
So
right.
Whatever you're doing, they want
it's not
more.
Enough.
You can't over communicate. At least we haven't seen that happen yet.
And some of that is that different people want communication in different ways.
Right.
Some people actually want you to come up face to face and talk to them every day. And you don't have to spend an hour with everybody, but you may have to say hello to certain individuals or they're going to get their feelings hurt.
Agreed.
You may have to do that.
So what is your communication plan?
Right.
What are your meeting schedules? So those are all good things to get employee engagement. Now we have another strategy we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've focused on with some of our companies is, well, how do you hire people? How are you attracting people? And then how are you involving the people that are actually going to work with this individual in the process?
Correct.
So get them engaged in the process. That's one strategy is if Peg's going to be the new boss or the boss in this department where we're hiring 2 new people, well, let's have Peg involved in every step of the process to make sure we get somebody that she actually is excited about.
Well, you'll get
buy-in. And that will
buy-in.
help retention.
Yeah, you'll get buy-in then. That will
From you.
absolutely.
Right.
So how like that's almost an entire show, Pete,
It
on
is. Yeah.
on
We're not going
hiring.
to spend too much time on that.
Which we've done before. If you go to takeactionbusinesscoaching.com, you can look up hiring.
Right.
Because we're limited, we want to get to this, but that is a very important part.
Yep.
Is hiring the right
so
people.
one of our clients developed an onboarding, an improved onboarding checklist. Mm-hmm. And there's some of the things on here. You want me to just rattle off a few of these?
I like this because, okay, first of all, you just said something very important. I just wanted to point out is you should have an onboarding.
Oh, you should have one in the first place?
Or checklist.
Aha, really?
So what is it? Number one.
What does that mean? Well, describe what it is. Well, it's...
So when people are hired,
yeah,
whether it's, and we want consistency, whether it's a multiple division company, each manager would have the same consistent way of onboarding a new team member to make sure that they're engaged, feel welcome, feel a part of it. Mm-hmm. And it, in some cases it can be a map. We have one client that did a map and they actually gave them, here's what you're going to be going through. And they showed them. Uh-huh. And that's not a bad idea.
Sometimes we have schedules that week 1 you do this, mm-hmm. week 2 you do that, that kind of thing. That's all good too. This form is a little different. There are some boxes that you can check to signify that you finished this task. And one of the big things that they focused on was, well, we're losing people because we've got poor relationships from management to employee and employee to employee. So how can we focus more on bonding and actually building relationships? So I'll just rattle off a couple of these and we can talk about
And if
them.
you want this checklist, you are welcome to go ahead and call 614.
Just write your address on the back of a $100 bill and mail it.
You could do that too. Or you could go to our website and there's a contact form. As soon as you go to our website, you can use that. Because if you're driving, that's going to be easier. Right. TakeActionBusinessCoaching.com. Or you can call Pete
at 614-306-7922.
You said that fast. 306-7922. There you go.
Or 22.
Okay, go ahead and go through
All
the
right,
checklist.
Here we go. So production, this is in a factory environment. So trainer and employee arrive 30 minutes before the regular start of the shift. So I'm supposed to start tomorrow. Let's say I'm starting on Monday morning, and we're supposed to show up at 8 o'clock. Well, you get there early so that when that employee walks in the door, somebody's there shaking hands with them and saying hi. The minute they walk in the door, they're not standing in the hall by themselves, looking around.
Mm-hmm.
You introduce the employee to all department employees, one person at a time.
So that they understand who they're working for. So what happens in this, and some of you might be saying this is obvious.
This is so basic. It's ridiculous.
The problem is that we're so busy, no matter what business you're in, we're busy. We're operating right now, a lot of us at maximum capacity.
Well, we had an experience a year ago with an intern that this didn't happen to them on the first day, and they were extremely discouraged by the end of the day.
They ended up quitting with 1 weekend.
Yeah.
Because this didn't happen.
These first two things didn't happen.
And this isn't a professional environment, so it's whatever environment.
Walk through the facility as you are making introductions. So you get a lay of the land kind of thing. Where's the restroom? Where's the...
Even though you've done
a
tour prior,
sure,
do it again on their first day.
Right. And I'll just go through these in order. Select a buddy that will be a go-to person in addition to the trainer or supervisor. It's great to have a supervisor, but we all know supervisors get called into meetings. They get wherever there's a crisis, that's where they go, and sometimes they're not available. So who else are they going to go to? Because sometimes a new employee doesn't have any idea what to do when something goes wrong. Everything's good when it's running well, right? But if something goes wrong, I need more than one person to go to.
Right.
So that was one. And they were pretty important about this. And then make an introduction with those two people.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure they meet.
Right.
Introduce the employee to the appropriate office staff. So who are the HR folks that, I talk about my insurance, or what happens if something goes wrong with my paycheck? Where do I go? Right.
I like that.
I mean, again, these are pretty basic things, but we want to make sure we do it. Supervisor introduction. And Peg, you helped on this one. I remember this, is that it's great for the manager or supervisor to give a background of themselves so that you can put that in context and say, well, I worked in 5 different departments here. I was hired in 82, and I've done this. I was in sales for a few years. Give them a little background and personal history so that you can start building a connection with that person.
And that goes back to our strategies before the break, where we're talking about building relationships and communication. That's what this is all about.
Right.
But put it in a checklist so that you're very clear with your team on what it's expected. And I would give it to the people coming on board and saying, this is what's happening.
This.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I like some of the things in here that they made sure they put in here is making sure you are clear again. And you've done this in the hiring process. There are going to be some good things about this role, and there are going to be some things that are challenging.
Right.
And I just want to remind you, when it's challenging, here's what we do, or here's what you could do to help yourself, or come and get me, and I'll help you through it the first 50 times you do it.
Yes.
Simple things like break room location, break policies, the company values and culture, which we have all our clients write down. I know you have a culture.
Right.
Whether you write it down or not, you've got one, but we encourage folks to actually get it clear and make sure they hire according to it, and then make sure we communicate that to new employees as well. And then we have the HR folks going back out to these new employees within the first couple of weeks to do a check-in. Go out and talk to them.
Absolutely.
Supervisors talking to them. That's their job, the line manager's role, but somebody else is coming out to check on them.
So who is it? How are they talking? Let's do a check-in. And again, It's about engagement. It's about retention.
And for the employee to understand that somebody cares about me.
Absolutely.
They care about me.
Absolutely.
Face-to-face sit down with whoever this person is doing the training is. After 2 weeks, we're going to sit down and just have a meeting and say, okay, we've gone through a lot of things. What else do you need? Or what is it that you feel very uncomfortable about? Or is there anything that is worrying you, to just open-ended conversation again.
This would be, when you do this will increase your retention rate and engagement. Right. You got to make sure that you have a system of accountability and auditing to make sure it's happening.
And it's got to that's a good point, and it's got to be customized to your environment.
Right.
You've got to figure out.
And have your team
a lot of
help you.
big companies have multiple departments, have different cultures. Well, that's great. Just have your own for that department. Mm-hmm. And same thing with a month, and same thing with 90 days. Is after a month, after 3 months, we need to do some certain things and have a sit down with them and give them feedback, obviously, about performance, that kind of thing. But then also how they're fitting in. How's their fit with the company? and is there anything that they're concerned about going forward?
And then, of course, you have your training, and you have your training checklist.
Yeah, we should have that as well.
Absolutely. And then make sure that they see that training checklist as well. Here's everything that's going to be done. Because guess what? When we get busy, we might have a manager that might not be as strong. And if we can give that to the people that we're onboarding, they understand our intention and they understand what's supposed to happen. And when it doesn't happen, they understand it's not right.
And it's professional. If you say, well, in this department, there are basically a dozen different activities or tasks that you need to be mastered. The first month, you're going to learn the first two, right?
Right.
And it will take you several months to get to 8, 9, and 10, and that's okay. And at least they know that you have a plan and you're going to help them through it. And they will learn it all.
And so the goal, I mean, there's so many things we can do, but as Pete and I, as your coaches for this last hour, we appreciate you letting us coach you. What we want you to take away is that you should be doing something. And if nothing else, measure it and create a couple of these strategies to make sure you improve it. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, then we know that the coaching has helped you for your hour investment in listening to our show.
There you go.
I mean, really.
And if you'd like to talk to one of us, give us a call, 614-306-7922, or you can go to our website,
which is takeactionbusinesscoaching.com. And you can hear some of our other archived radio shows, in addition to this one, that are on there. And they're all by title because Alan does a great job of titling them.
Yes, he does.
So,
and if you need help, just say, help.
Oh, yeah. That is good. And again, one other thing, Pete, that we did promise, if you want our checklist, we would absolutely love to email that or take a photo, whatever is the best medium that we can get that over to you. We can give you some checklists and some material that will show, at least give you a guideline of how you can build your own and make it customized to what you need.
This has been Business Talk, your business, your success, sponsored by Take Action Business Coaching. The opinions expressed were those of the participants and may not be the views of the staff, advertisers, and owners of the station. Advice given was not intended to replace that of your business advisor. For more information about the topics discussed today, call 614-306-7922. 614-306-7922. Tune in next week at this time for more Business Talk, your business, your success.